This is my grandfather, my girlfriend, and my grandma. And I would like her to describe her experiences of the Second Great War, just in your own words. I'll probably have some questions for you after you say whatever you're going to say, but just tell me whatever you would like to say about it.
Well, first of all, I wasn't very old.
Mm-hmm.
I was 2 years old when the war started.
What year was that?
That was 1939 when the war started.
All right.
And so that made me 8 when it ended.
Okay.
8 years old when it ended.
So you definitely have some significant memory of it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
Yes, I remember where we lived in. My father was in the RAF, so he wasn't there a lot of the times. He wasn't around.
Okay.
We had a shelter in the house.
Was that Grandpa?
Yes.
Yes.
We had a shelter in the living room. When I say a shelter, it was like a bed with a big iron top over it.
Oh, okay.
That we had that, and at night, if the siren went off, to say there's going to be an air raid, we had to get up out of bed and get into this thing, so that if the bomb dropped, at least you've got some coverage.
Okay.
I remember going to school. On the way to school, the sirens would go, and you had to run into an air raid shelter.
How many were there? Like, where were they?
They were quite frequent places.
Okay.
Where I lived, it wasn't like as bad as London.
Okay.
Because the Germans weren't after where I lived. I lived on the coast, so we did get a few more bombs than, say, somewhere central, because they wanted to get, bomb the coast.
Supply lines and...
Yeah,
right.
and London, obviously.
And can you describe, was there a lights out, or how does that work?
Yes, you had to have, everybody had to have what they call blackout curtains.
Okay.
And at night they had to be closed, and they had the older gentlemen that were too old to fight were called wardens, and they walked around the neighborhood to make sure there was no chink of light showing.
Whoa.
So the Germans wouldn't have something to see, so they could target. Everything was on ration. You couldn't get anything. I mean, everything was powdered. Powdered milk, powdered eggs, powdered potatoes.
And you had, coupons for these rations?
You had coupons. Everybody had a ration book. And my sister and I, your aunt, I remember that Grandma would send us to the neighbors and swap cheese coupons for jam, and she'd say, "You don't like cheese," but we'd never tasted it, so we didn't know whether we liked cheese.
That's so horrible.
She just told us we didn't like it. And I
man.
remember the first tomato I saw, the first banana I saw. There was no ice cream. There was no ice cream man coming around. But you took a lot of it in stride because you didn't know anything else. And when Grandpa came home, I was scared of him because I didn't know who he was.
Oh.
And one incident I remember when he came home, he had a suitcase. It was wooden. It looked like a homemade suitcase. And he opened it up in the house, and he had a little axe, and he started chopping the bottom
Breaking
of it.
the suitcase.
And Grandma said, "What are you doing? That's a good suitcase." And he had a false bottom, and he had cigarettes and chewing gum and all sorts
chocolate and
smuggled
man.
in.
Oh,
smuggled
man.
it in. And he served in Algiers in the desert.
Okay. Now, was he a pilot or no?
No, he was not a pilot. I don't really know. When he first went to join the army, because he was a coal miner, they said, "No, we're not taking coal miners. They need to stay in this country and get the coal,
fuel production." Right.
So he went to a different place and lied and said he was something else because he wanted to get in the service.
So they weren't checking that hard. They were like, "Oh, you're John Smith."
Oh, this is what you do. Well, he didn't know. He just put coal miner. Well, they saw that and they said no.
Oh.
So the next time, I don't even know what it was he lied about, but he wrote something else. He might have
Wow.
said he worked in a shop.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, no,
And they
that's
just
amazing.
believed whatever you said,
Oh.
you know.
Okay.
And also he was married with 2 kids, so those were the last ones they took.
Okay.
So, but he went and he stayed until the war was over.
Okay. And what was his full name? Do you know his birth date?
No.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
know there was some controversy on it was February, and we didn't know if it was the 28th or the 29th. He said it was the 29th, that he was born on the 29th of February, so he only had a birthday every 4 years. But Grandpa told so many stories. Half of them you didn't know what was true and what wasn't. You would have loved him. Your mother will probably tell you about him if you ask her.
She has told me how much she cared for him.
She was one of his favorites.
Okay.
She really was.
Okay.
Basically, it was just, everyday living. All the women stayed home and took care of the children and went out to work, and the men were all fighting the war. And I do remember the day the war was over. There was a huge celebration in the street. They had like big street. And I remember I was dressed in some kind of a little dress with the flag, the Union Jack.
Okay.
And everybody's running around, like Halloween, everybody dressed up. And basically, like I said, I think later in my life that those war years caused a few problems.
Really?
I suffered a little depression, and I blamed it on that.
Okay, so...
Nothing big, but a little bit.
Oh, well, I definitely see how that would follow you being so serious.
Because I was still old. I mean, the kids would get up after there'd been an air raid, and they were dropping, you heard the bombs dropping and all the booms and everything.
Right.
And all the kids would get up and go run and see where the bombs had dropped in the street. And there was people that lived next door to us that was bombed out of their home. And then they came and got a different housing, and they lived next door.
Okay.
And the house I lived in at that point is still there.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. Well, do you off chance remember the address of the...
Yes.
Okay. And what, shop?
Yes, because
Okay.
it was a coal mining village.
Okay.
And I use that sometimes in my passwords.
Now, do you actually heard the sound of a V-2 German rocket?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And,
yeah.
and what kind of sound was
like
it?
Just like a scream, almost like a tornado. When you hear the tornado, and then people say it sounds like a train, something kind of like that, and then you'd hear the big boom and the flash and.
Oh, so you'd see?
Oh, sure. You could see it out the windows, yeah.
How close are we talking here?
The next street over.
Oh, I didn't know you meant that close. I thought you
yeah.
meant like you'd look for the bomb craters later. I didn't know you meant like they were like down the street.
Over.
Oh my
our
gosh.
Street, that particular address I told you, I don't think a bomb ever actually dropped on that street, but 2 streets over they did.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah. And if you notice in England, I know you were very small the last time you went.
I remember some.
But there was anything that was bombed, like anything historical, they saved as much as they could of something. I mean, they would just save bits of wall and a little bit of a castle or an abbey. They would save as much as they could. They were very good about taking care of anything like that.
Okay.
So.
So you remember the first time you saw a tomato and a banana and all these things?
Yes.
Where can you describe that experience? I'm sure it's sensory, so you still have.
I mean, I just knew it was a banana because I was told that's a banana.
Oh.
And that's a tomato.
And everything was fine after the war was over? I mean.
I was about 14 years old before everything kind of went. You could never get sweets.
Okay, no
kids.
sugar, no sugar.
There was no sweets, no fruit.
Okay.
like I said, most things were powdered.
Now, did you have something I believe it was referred to as like blood sausage?
Black pudding.
Okay, black
And
pudding.
also, one other thing that was quite important, everybody had to carry a gas mask.
Right, the gas
And because
mask.
of my age, my gas mask looked like a Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
It was red.
Okay.
Didn't we take you to Camp Eden?
I saw the memorial museum of all the different things. I saw the one for the baby and all the different gas masks. I did see the Mickey Mouse one. Yeah.
Aunt Joyce was 4 years older than me, and she had a regular black one.
Okay.
But we had to carry them. They were in a little cardboard box, and all the kids would have them slung over the shoulders when they were going to school. And like I said, I remember several times during the day, in daylight, on your way to school, the sirens would go off, and you'd go to the nearest air raid shelter.
Does our tornado siren ever bother you? Wednesdays, 12 o'clock?
When I first came over here, yes. When I first moved over here, I'd get really panicky when I heard, because it sounds just like...
Oh, yeah? Okay.
You know.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have questions about, or is there anything else that you can think of?
I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I can think of that I would remember.
Wasn't Grandpa imprisoned, POW? No? Or am I thinking of...
I had uncles that were captured.
They were captured?
In German prisons.
Okay. Did they ever...
Like your grandma brothers.
Okay, who were they?
My cousin, my grandma's sister's husband. So that was like but then she had father was.
Okay.
And I think another brother of Grandma Grace's also was captured in Dunkirk.
Dunkirk. Now, did they get out alive? Were they okay?
Yes, they okay. After the war was over, they were captured until the end of the war. They served so long and they fought, and then after the war was over, that's when they all got, came home.
All right. Well.
And I remember, even as young as I was, it took Grandpa had a very hard time getting back into ordinary everyday life.
1,000-mile stare,
but
kind of.
He went back into the coal mine and worked in the coal mine until he was too old to work anymore.
Did he find comfort going back in the coal mine? Was it more?
Know.
No, you don't know.
I don't know.
All right. Well.
But I know that he had a hard time settling back into what they call civilian life.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your candor in this matter. I know it's a difficult subject to talk about, so I very much appreciate it.
Well, it's something you should know anyway.
Right. No.
Something your grandmother lived through.
That's an important piece of history, and
And I hope one day you get to go over there.
I will absolutely
when you're old enough.
When I have the resources.
Appreciate it.
Right. Absolutely.
Because you weren't very old the last time you went.
I have good memories of it, but not complete, full adult style of memory. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.